Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Hey Mela.
Yes. Hi. Can you?
Thought you weren't gonna make it, man.
I fell a nipple and I'm not okay. And yeah. Okay, is all my speakers here? Is everyone here? Where's Beth? And Ashuma. There's Ashuma. Everything good. We are waiting for Ben and Ashuma. In the meantime, welcome everybody to our What Happened Tuesday. I am Sisa Nkanunu, owner of Set. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the show. Hey, Ashuma.
Hey, hey, hey.
You're like sitting the wrong way around. There we go. Mela, I can't see you. Hi. Does anyone know where Ben is? Should I ask him? Okay, anyway, while we wait for Ben, can we start with the first question? All right. So our topic today is what is consent? Discussing the unwritten rule. All right. And our first question is what is consent? Chipo, can I please get your definition of what is consent?
For me personally, consent is when one person agrees to or gives permission to another person to do something. But this agreement has to be voluntary and the person has to have knowledge of what exactly they're agreeing to.
All right, thank you so much, Chipo. Milani, can I please get your definition of consent?
So, according to the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Act 6 of 2012, consent is voluntarily agreeing to something without any force. So basically, consent can be given in many ways. I think both verbal and non-verbal. However, it is better to have verbal consent as that draws a clearer idea of what boundaries are. So with the verbal, you have the enthusiastic yes, and then you have with the non-verbal, which is body language-based consent. So smiling, thumbs up, head nod. But with that, I do think body language differs. And given the fact that a lot of people have casual sex, it would take having to understand the person you're with to kind of understand body language. So it is better and less riskier, for lack of better words, to just verbally approach it. However, I do think it is the case that it is not just restricted to verbal words.
All right, thank you so much, Milani. Ashima, can we please get your definition of consent?
So my definition is basically what Chipo said. It is when you permit someone to an activity or any kind of intercourse that you guys will be having. And I think I want to use the word authorization because people still don't seem to grasp really that you are permitting someone to join in this activity with them. I think people will respond better to consent if it's defined as I'm giving you authority or I'm freely agreeing that we should partake into this with this activity or whatnot. So completely, exactly, giving permission and agreeing, not just with being coerced or like freely, fully giving a yes or a no. That is consent to me. That I'm giving you the authority of whether or not I want to join this activity with you or not.
Thank you. Mela, can you please give us your definition of consent?
So consent for me is clear, unmistakable, and voluntary agreement between people to participate in an activity, a sexual activity in this case. And obviously, if people are being coerced or if they're under a certain type of influence, be it drugs or alcohol, they can't consent. And yeah, so clear, unmistakable, and voluntary. You wanted it, you were willing to do it, and you weren't forced or coerced. So that's consent for me.
I like that you said unmistakable. Hi, Ben. Hi, Asa. Welcome to the show. Asa, can you please give us your definition of consent?
Consent is acknowledging someone's right to say yes, but also acknowledging their right to say no and understanding that they're saying no.
Thank you so much, Asa. Ben, can you please give us your definition of consent?
Oh, yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me? My definition of consent is pretty much just yes, without any like negative thoughts in terms of like yes because I have to, like feeling a responsibility towards it, but more like yes because it's something I want to do, and that's like in general. So like if you have like an uneasy feeling or something and you're just doing it because say now you promised or it's something you arrange and then you're kind of not feeling it but you feel like you have to say yes, that to me is like more like it's not really consent. Consent is like wanting it with like your whole being basically.
All right. Milani, I see your hand is up.
Can you hear me? Okay, so there's a few things I had forgotten to mention when it comes to consent. Pamela did touch on it, which is capacity is a very important thing, actually being conscious. So if you say yes while you're sleepy, if you say yes when you're in an unconscious state through the influence of drugs or alcohol, then that is not consent. Also, silence does not imply consent. As that other, I think there was an Instagram video of that got released, and that goes basically explaining the whole concept of silence not meaning consent, as well as accepting a social invite does not mean consent, nor does a previous sexual past mean consent. I feel like that's very important to mention. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you for mentioning, especially the silence part. Thank you on that. Our second question is, what is enthusiastic consent? And Ashima, can you please start us off with that?
Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Basically, enthusiastic consent would mean that you've consented and you're partaking in this intercourse not because you feel pressured to, but because both of the parties are relaxed to do it. They've fully consented. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ashima. Asa, can you please give us your definition of enthusiastic consent? Asa, we can't hear you.
Sorry. From my understanding, it's when both people are aware of what they're doing because they both want to do it, and it's been like the air's been clear that they both know what they're doing and they both want to do whatever they're going to be doing.
Thank you, Asa. Chipo, can you please give us your definition of enthusiastic consent?
To me, enthusiastic consent is consent with no hesitation or uncertainty. And it's consent in every moment within the activity. One could say yes to certain activity and no later on as things somewhat almost always progress. And I think it's a model that encourages people to make sure that they want to partake in the activity at all times. Because people are allowed to change their minds.
Beautiful. Mela, can you please give us your definition? Mela? Mela? The microphone issue first. Okay. Milani, can you please give us yours in the meantime?
Enthusiastic consent is consent. It's the first question. Once again, there's no such thing as enthusiastic consent. So really, there's no such thing as enthusiastic consent. It's consent, and all consent is enthusiastic. It's one and the same.
Ben, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just think it's like when you like super keen. So it's just like an adjective to wanting it. So like you'll haven't seen each other in a while and now you just really want to go at it. So you're super enthusiastic to get under the covers. That's what I think.
Right. Mela, is Mela seems to be frozen. All right. We'll move to the next question. Before we move to the next question, can all the viewers please note that if the meeting does cut, which it will probably at 1:45, you can rejoin the meeting with the same ID and same password. If you use the link, it is the same link. On to the third question. The third question is, at what point does mutually consented sex become rape? Chipo, can you please start us off with that question?
To me, it becomes rape when one of the parties stops giving consent. Like I said in my previous answer, that enthusiastic consent is ongoing consent within the activity. So I think it becomes rape when one party no longer gives consent to the activity and people are allowed to change their minds. And sometimes I disagree with Milani saying that enthusiastic consent is consent, because sometimes that consent, although it may be verbal, written, it may seem that like that they actually want to do the activity, but they're actually being forced and so on.
All right. Thank you. Milani, is that a hand up or a clapping hand? Hand up. All right. Milani, you can answer it and then, yeah.
I mean, if they were forced, then it would be unenthusiastic consent. I think there's some fundamental axioms that come with consent, and the main principle to it would be enthusiasm. That goes without saying. I think there's no need to kind of imply and over-imply the enthusiasm because it's automatic, you see. And if it is not that, then it is coercion, you see. Should someone have sex and they're not willing to have it, or at some point they're not sure of themselves and they've said yes, then that's unenthusiastic and that's non-consensual. Unenthusiastic sex is non-consensual sex, or unenthusiastic consent is not consent. Hence I say, there's not really such thing as enthusiastic consent. It's just consent. It's one and the same. It's implied. It's a fundamental.
All right. And then can you please answer question 3?
Question 3 being?
At what point does mutually consented sex become rape?
When one of the partners who have consented withdraws their consent and the other continues, that's when it becomes rape.
All right. Thank you, Milani. Ashima, can you please answer question 3 for us?
Before I do, I want to agree with Milani because consent effectively is enthusiastic. Otherwise, if it's not enthusiastic, it is coercion, it is force because they're no longer relaxed. It feels forceful. So yeah. Anyways, so the point at which it mutually consented sex becomes rape is again when one of the parties decides to withdraw their consent, because consent is not a static thing. Someone can decide whether or not they feel uncomfortable because they do, or for whatever reasons that they may feel to withdraw, they are allowed to. They're supposed to. So yeah.
Thank you. Ben, can you please, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, this is just like the enthusiastic consent versus the normal consent. I do think there is such thing as consent and enthusiastic consent, just because sometimes you just like want to do it just because, and you just like you do want to do it, like you have to take ownership of what you want to do, but sometimes you like really want to do it, so there's like a different level to it. And I think now sometimes there's enthusiastic and there's just consent, because like I don't think every time you don't really want it with all your being, it's like non-consensual, you know what I mean? Because that would be a bit extreme. I mean, we've all been in a situation, well, I don't know, but some people have been in a situation where it's like you do want it, but there's also situations where you've been in with the same person, different person, doesn't matter, where you really want it. If you guys know what I mean, like it is a bit different. Like I understand what Milani is saying in terms of like it needs to be something that both really want, and I do get that. But what I'm basically saying is that there is like levels to how much you want it, and just because you don't want it as much doesn't mean that that's unconsensual. And then at what point does mutually consented sex become rape? That's actually pretty difficult for me, because I'm not like, that's something I would like to learn about more than talk about, because I don't think I know the answer. I think it's just when you like, would that be like in the act, or would it be like, say now you have a wife and you're in like a more of a patriarchal lifestyle, say now religion or culture, whatever, and you as the patriarch demanded, like it's like almost like a contract thing. If you guys know what I'm trying to say, I think that is like, it's supposed to be mutually consented, but it's not really. So then it becomes more of a one-way side. So rape, I don't know. Like
Okay,
I'm unsure on that one.
there's a question, question 8, that's similar to what you were saying just now, Ben. We'll get to it just now. In the meanwhile, Mela, is Mela back? Yes, she is. Mela, can you please? It's okay. Can you answer question 3? It is, at what point does mutually consented sex become rape?
Okay, I just wanted to say, adding on to the enthusiastic consent thing, I think there's consent where you consent to sex and or the activity or any other activity you're doing, and you're going forward, you're doing it, you don't have any like inhibitions, you're not saying no, you're not feeling like you don't want to do it. But I think there's also enthusiastic consent where you're in the moment, you're in the mood, and you're like constantly agreeing, saying yes, thumbs up, this feels good, whatever, so on and so forth, right? And for the when does consensual become rape, I think that's when you're in the act and someone withdraws their consent, somebody says, well, I don't feel comfortable with this anymore, or they say no, or they start feeling uncomfortable, and the other person continues, although they can tell that this person is uncomfortable, or they've said no. I think that's when it becomes rape.
Thank you, Mela. Asa, do you have anything to add on to that question? Question 3.
The one about when does, oh, but actually, please repeat that question.
At what point does mutually consented sex become rape?
I think like as soon as that person is like, yes, they may have said like they're consenting at the beginning, but as soon as they say like no, as soon as they back out, that means no, like you should stop. Like an example would be you and a girl and I are making out and it starts getting heated, foreplay comes into everything, and then our clothes are coming off and it's leading to sex, and she says no, and I somehow like just like force myself to like carry on and like get her to carry on, then that's rape because she said no, but I carried on.
All right. Thank you, Asa. Moving on to the next question, question 4. I heard someone speak about it earlier. It is, what is coercion? We will have Ben. Can you start us with that one?
Yeah, it's like when you say now, like I'm with my girlfriend and then she wants to really get it going and I'm just like, nah, I'm not feeling it. And she's like, come on, we haven't done it in a while, blah, blah, blah. And like keeps going like that and like kind of like pressuring it on me till I say yes. Like she's like almost like giving like bait, like trying to get you to do it. That's when that's like I think coercing someone into doing what you want to do rather than just listening to what you said in the first place, which is like no. So it's like coercing and rape are like very fine line between the two, because like maybe in the moment, because like we're all responsible for what we do, but like even with drinking, it's like we call it peer pressure when it's drinking. It has different names, but like you always want to get your friend to drink or to smoke or whatever, and you're like, come on, just do it, don't be a pussy, just do it. And you like coercing them into something that they initially didn't want to do. That's just it might be just a bit more severe, or it probably is just more severe when it's like having sex. So yeah, I think that's coercing, like just pressuring until you get your way. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Ben. Ashima, can you please give us your definition of coercion?
Okay. So difficult because we're all kind of saying the same thing. But coercion, in my words, would be disregarding what the other person is saying to you or the reason of not wanting to consent to this activity, and you're kind of just leading them on to kind of get your way, and you being the person that's heated, person that's wanting this to continue. You kind of coercing the person to have the sexual intercourse, not really listening to what they have to say and like doing it regardless. Well, it becomes rape then afterwards. But like Ben said, there's a really fine line between coercion and rape, because once you get past the coercion, then it becomes rape. But yeah, that's my definition.
Thank you, Ashima. Does anyone else have anything to add, or do you guys think we should go on to the next question? Next question. All right. Minnesota. Okay, Milani sent a message down. He says the Minnesota court ruled that a man can't be charged for rape because the woman herself chose to drink. Ooh, that is interesting. Okay, all right. Okay. On to the next question. Okay, do you think coercion is a catalyst to many sexual harassment and rape cases? Mela, can you please answer that question first?
So I think coercion can definitely turn into sexual harassment or sexual, rape. And I think, like they said, like Ben said, there's a fine line between coercion and rape. And once you start, as an offender, once you start towing that line and convincing someone, no, you want to do it, like, oh, like it's fine, like let's just do it, like don't be, like whatever stuff, whatever. once you are coercing someone to commit that act with you, and then at some stage, I think you'll start just not caring about consent at all, and just like disregarding it and taking advantage of someone whether or not they say yes. Like without even getting that final yes, you'll do it, even without coercing them, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank you. Chipo, can you please answer question 5 for us?
I do think it's a catalyst, especially when the person who is coercing uses force, threats, and so on, and especially in situations when, I don't want to generalize and say that it's men who always rape, but I'm just saying, especially in situations when men enforce their physical superiority on women, it becomes rape and sexual harassment. And because of that, women know sometimes, most of the time, that they have no chance against protecting themselves. And in many instances, they get forced into such situations protecting others.
Okay, thank you, Chipo. Milani, can you please answer question 5 for us?
Sure. I don't necessarily think coercion is a catalyst for sexual harassment and rape, simply because my understanding of a catalyst is something that increases the rate of something, right? I think coercion is the sole reason for rape, and that's that. So what would increase the rate of rape would probably be factors like power dynamics and drugs and alcohol. Those would be the catalysts, and not coercion in itself, because, well, that's rape.
All right. Thank you, Milani. Asa, can you please answer question 5 for us?
I fully agree with Milani on that it's more of the reason, as in as opposed to being like part of the reason as to why like rape like happens, because people are not saying that men always are the ones who are always raping people, but men use their power over a woman or other men to convince people to have sex with them, but in actual like fact, that's actually coercing them into having sex, because it's not something they want to do, but it's something they do because they're scared of what that person could do to them. If that makes any sense.
It does. Okay. Ashluma, can you please answer question 5 for us?
Okay, I also agree with Milani. It's not really a catalyst, it's just something that kind of leads to the rape, something that just passes on to becoming rape. So, but I mean, in the way you asked it, the context in which you asked it, yes, it is a catalyst to becoming rape. Yeah, I agree with what Milani said, with what everyone else has said. So,
all right. So if you all, is everyone saying yes? Does everyone agree with Milani? Ben? Yes. Ben.
I don't disagree, but for me, I don't look at life as like black and white, or like situations as black and white. So like, I think every case is different.
All right.
So like, I agree that if it's like more of a power coercion, so people are saying yes because they're scared that they will either lose something or get hurt or whatever, then I would agree that that would be pretty much rape. But if it's like there's different degrees to it, just like there's different degrees to everything. So like if I like bring up the example of the drinking, for example, when you kind of like pressure your friend into drinking, you're not doing it with malicious intent. Like your intent is to get them to have a good time or to like get on a level with you. And then I think like sometimes like the coercion thing could be like a more of a, like, that's why I said it's like such a fine line, because in a case where there's no fear of a consequence in terms of like, if you don't do it now, you're gonna lose your house or lose your eye or whatever it is at the time. But it's more of like a thing like, you can like put your foot down, you don't have to, and like your partner or whatever is kind of like really pushy for it, and you're just like, let me just do it. And that is coercion, but I wouldn't count that as rape in the same sense as I would count something that where there's like a fear. And I'm not trying to like say that it's not rape or it is rape. It's more like it's a case-to-case difference, because like say now you're in that situation and you're with someone, and then that person says, no, I didn't really want to do it. And then at the time, like sometimes you might not even know that you are doing the whole coercion thing. Like, if you know what I mean, like like there can be situations like that where it's just like a very gray area in that sense. Like, so for me, yeah, I do think it's a reason more than a catalyst. I think that was really well said. But to me, I don't think it's like set in stone for every single case. Like, I think every case of in terms of coercion and rape needs to be looked at with a new pair of eyes, and you can't put like, there's no like formula to it. Like, there's different degrees to the trauma, there's different degrees to the circumstance and all that stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Before I see all the hands, before I answer all of you, now when just going on to the next question quickly before I come back to the three people with the hands, then do you think does having sex after being coerced count as rape then? So you've been coerced to do this. Let's say you're doing the coercion, and then the person afterwards feels like you did coerce her, and she feels that you have actually raped her. Would you in that sense think that is rape then? I don't know if that makes sense.
Me or everyone?
Just you. Who do you know?
Oh, okay. See, that's where I don't know. Like, this is something that I don't know as much about as I would like to. So like, I would say, yeah, I have no idea, to be honest. Like, cause because it's like this situation where it's like, you didn't think you did it, if you know what I mean, and now this person is saying you did, and you don't understand because you thought then, oh no, like I didn't mean to like coerce it. I thought it was just like play or whatever. And then maybe in that situation, no. And then in another situation, if you intentionally know what you're doing, then yeah, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to take Milani. I think your hand was up first, and then just a warning that we have 5 minutes left of this meeting, and then we'll just rejoin with the same meeting ID, password, or link. Milani, your hand is up.
So Ben mentioned something interesting with regards to sex and stating that things aren't black and white. And that is the problem, because in the gray areas where you'll find coercion, that's exactly where you find coercion, right? So girl says, guy tries to persuade or manipulate. Yes, manipulate would be the better word to use. Girl says yes, and then they have sex, right? Even though it's not something that she necessarily desired, right? That right there would be coercion, and she's had undesired sex. And hence, these things do need to be black and white, though. That's why we have these conversations, because it has to be black and white. It can't just be well, there's gray areas and that's just how it is, you know, because that's very devastating. So much happens in the gray area, and so much trauma is to be found in the gray area. It has to be eradicated. People need to have sex that they clearly want, you know, and both sides shouldn't try to persuade too much, or at least manipulate. And we need to rework around actual persuasion and manipulation, because, you know, to court and to coerce, there's a fine line, you know, and there's some problems coming from that, you see, and there's some subjectivity to it, right? But things need to be a bit more objective when it comes to that. But I think the black and white analogy is very dangerous. Things can't be gray. Things have to be black and white.
Yes, thank you, Milani. Asuma, I think your hand is up second. Not too sure.
I'm going to take it anyways. Ben mentioned something or used an example of like a night out, people drinking, all of that. And I just wanted to say like one thing, whether or not you are intoxicated, whether or not you didn't mean to, or while you were in the act of coercing someone, while you guys are both intoxicated, it's, if you coerce them and it leads to sex and you think it's consensual because you did it in a smooth way, or you courted her, but you didn't listen for her response, I feel that it counts as rape. Your brain needs to be awake. I know it's unfair to say that like you're drunk, your brain is not even existent at this point, but it's very important. Like Milani said, it needs to be something that is a black and white thing. You need to wait for the response. It can't just happen and you assume that the person is okay with it happening, or that it was consensual because you guys were both having a great time. You guys were drinking, it's chilled. She didn't say no, but did she say yes, or did he say yes? So it's still rape. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for did he say yes? Mela, after Mela, I'll probably cut the meeting and then we'll start again.
Okay, so when Ben was talking about the coercing and stuff, he said, well, maybe you have good intentions and maybe you don't mean to come off as coercing someone, or but it doesn't matter, because when you rape someone, it's not your intentions, it's your actions. So if you raped them, it doesn't matter what you thought you were doing or how you felt about it, or what was in your head. At the end of the day, you raped them. So like Milani said, it is very much supposed to be black and white. And also, when we were talking about consent, we all mentioned that it's voluntary and it's meant to be enthusiastic and clear and unmistakable. And it can't be that if people have, like, if you've continually said, oh, let's do this, like, I feel like it's gonna be fine, let's do it, especially if the person has been saying no or has been expressing disinterest or discomfort. And if you continue to push that and say, no, we should do it, then at that, it is rape, because you haven't gotten actual consent. That's not consent at that point.
Thank you, Mela. Okay, guys, so I'm going to end the meeting now and then I will start it again just now. See you guys just now.